Colin here for my Patreon live stream. Give me a thumbs up if I'm coming across and I'm not freezing up or any of that stuff. I hope you guys are doing great, and it's good to be here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being patrons. I got some stories to tell, but first I'm going to read my favorite entries into the Trouser EP contest here. So hi Lisa, how you doing? Hey Jennifer. Hey Maria. Hey Nikki, how you doing? Thanks for being here, everybody. I really appreciate it. I think we're on a little bit of a delayed reaction because now I'm seeing that everybody's here. So hello Sharon. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we asked the question: what was the craziest thing before, during, or after a true show? Hey Brad, hey Bethany. So I liked Chrissy Mason's answer about the craziest thing before, during, and after. She said, sorry, this might be too much information, but I really need a Trouser EP. My daughter was conceived after an epic true show in 2014. Completely unplanned, but a very welcome surprise, and we named her Melody. So I liked that story. You know the rock show is good when a baby is conceived afterwards. So that's a winner for me. Chrissy's story about Melody's birth, Melody's conception. So this is actually going to tie in, because I was going to talk a lot about our touring with. I'm always thinking about things to talk about on here, and I go through phases of the band's career when I'm thinking up stories, and I was actually going to talk about this tour today on this live stream. So Kristen W had a story that said, I have a few stories, but this will forever be the how the hell did all this even happen kind of night. I'm from Ontario and was in Calgary visiting my sister for her birthday, as she had just moved there and didn't know many people. A friend of a friend offered us tickets to Kid Rock, who was playing at the Saddle Dome, and the Trews were opening. During Kid Rock's set, we bumped into the Trews and ended up backstage having beers, sharing stories, and meeting some cool people. The party was moved to the other end of the building, where Kid Rock himself was DJing his own after party. I remember standing there saying to my sister, how the hell did we end up here? J.A., being the cool guy that he is, introduced us to Kid Rock, and we hung out for a bit, meeting people and listening to tunes that Kid Rock was spinning. That night set the tone for the rest of the weekend as we celebrated my sister's birthday. Thank you guys, your kindness went a long way. So Kristen W., I liked that story, and you will also be getting a Trouser EP. And now, the next one I really liked was from Rebecca Way. And this story was from 2004, 2005. These are all very heartwarming stories, which is nice to hear. But it was a small venue, small stage. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what bar it was. Back then, we were seeing the band a lot. Anyway, I was in the front row. Where else would I be? Right at the end of the show, I grabbed the set list, a very important tradition for me. As I was bringing it closer to me, a girl to my left grabbed it out of my hand and ripped the corner, leaving me with a blank electrical tape and a blank piece of paper. I was shocked and was kind of sad. I mean, who does that? Very mean, drunk people. What I didn't realize was that Jack saw the whole thing, and he grabbed Sean's set list and handed it to me and became my set list hero. So I thought that was a very nice story and a very nice thing for Jack to do. It's very Jack, if you know Jack. He's a sensitive, sweet guy. So Rebecca, I like that story, and you will be getting a Trouser EP. These are really long. This is going to bite into my story time. These are long answers, but great. I love it. Chris Pike was at a gig of ours in Shawville, Quebec in 2018, 1 week after I threw out the first pitch at the Jays game, which went horribly wrong. Not sure if I told you guys about that before, but I whiffed it it was terrible. And I'm not going to talk about it because that story will take up too much time, but we'll talk about that some other time. But anyway, Chris drove to Ottawa to see the Capitol and to watch our show on Labor Day in Shawville, which is close enough to Ottawa. During the week, this is Chris's words, during the week I grabbed an old hardball and toyed with the idea of giving it to Colin as a gag. I had no idea how I was going to do it. So during the show, we were close to the front, and every now and then I would toss the ball up and down in plain sight of the band. When the main set ended, as soon as the encore started, John Angus looked right at me and asked for the ball, maybe wanting to give the needle to his brother. So somehow I wasn't too nervous to toss it to him. He gave the ball to Colin, who explained the week before and how much he practiced with Gormley and his brother-in-law. So he was ready to throw a pregame strike, and how it didn't go as planned with the mascot trash talking him all the way to the mound and back. It was all in good fun, and he thanked me for the ball. So that was a good story. Chris, you get a trouser EP. And last but not least, I liked Jen Thomas's story. This was pretty funny. Jen Thomas, during the Stampede show in Calgary, two girls shoved in front of us, and one of them started dry heaving. Obviously concerned that we might be getting puked on, I offered to go get her some help to get her friend out of the crowd. She refused and told us she was fine. When she continued, we pushed back pretty hard for her to get her friend out of there, and she told us she was having a seizure. My friend, who I was there with, just happened to be a doctor, replied that she must have missed the day in med school where a seizure involved drinking and dry heaving and then continuing to dance at a concert. We still laugh about this. So Jen Thomas, that was actually my favorite one, and you get a trouser EP as well. But congrats everybody, and thanks for participating in our fun little games as we get down to the last bunch of trouser EPs, our very first album. So congrats to the winners. So I could take some questions. I got some questions here from the Patreon page, but I was going to talk about our Kid Rock tour in 2011. And as much as I disagree, with his politics now, we had a really great time on that tour in 2011. It was it was a really cool tour, and we got it last minute. We were out promoting our Hope and Ruin album. Had just come out, and we needed, the coverage and the promotion. So we were offered this arena tour from Vancouver, British Columbia to Toronto, Ontario, and all the major cities in between, opening for Kid Rock on his Born Free tour. And I wasn't a huge fan of his music. I didn't think much of him. I knew he was like a huge superstar, and I knew the shows would be sold out. And the Trews are never a band to turn down sold out arenas, because that's awesome. So we took the tour, and it ended up being a really wild couple of weeks. We showed up in Vancouver, British Columbia, for opening night at the Rogers Arena, and no, he wasn't with Pamela Anderson at that time. They had broken up by then. But we showed up in Vancouver, British Columbia at the Rogers Arena, and we usually, when we're dealing with, by this time in our career and since, we've opened for a lot of pretty big rock stars, and we tend to kind of keep to ourselves and feel it out. We don't want to show up and be overly friendly and too familiar, and kind of, we're just the opening band. So we try to be humble and polite, and, set up our gear and do a good show, and kind of keep to ourselves until we're summoned by the headliner, if ever we do get summoned. So that's what we did the opening night in Vancouver. It was a pretty forgettable show, really. We played a good set. It was a good crowd. And then we packed up our gear, stuck it in the trailer, and then went and watched the show from front of house, not really knowing what to expect from Kid Rock. I knew his music from the radio and stuff, but and he came on stage, and he was like the best goddamn rock star performer I'd ever seen. He was just incredible. It was just an incredible, raunchy, sleazy rock and roll show, and the material was good, but just his presentation and the way he worked the stage, and he had that almost like a young Axl Rose thing, like American Badass. He really pulled it off, and it was really, really, really great. I was blown away by how fucking amazing Kid Rock was live. We all were. Didn't know what to expect, and we just exceeded all expectations. And so just the consummate frontman. It was a really great band, and a really great, lots of stage sets and costume changes, and just really classic rock and roll show, and everybody in the crowd was eating it up, and they blew the place away. And we were just like, whoa, that's amazing. And then we got back into we had a van for that tour, because there wasn't a lot of money in the budget, and we didn't want to take a tour bus to eat all of our profits. So we were in the van and trailer. And then we left right after his show. We didn't think to stick around and say hi or anything. We didn't know if he even knew who we were, or if he even wanted to say hi. So we got in the van and trailer, and then drove to the next show in Kelowna the next night. And It was beautiful. It was springtime, beautiful drive through the mountains. The mountains in the wintertime, when you're touring, are terrifying, but in the summer or in the spring, they're just absolutely beautiful. So it was a nice, easy drive into Kelowna. We got to Kelowna, and it was awesome. Kid Rock, because he's a huge celebrity, was flying private jet, and he also traveled with two kind of ex-Marine Marine beret guys as bodyguards. Yeah, so he wasn't the first time. That wasn't the first time we'd seen like pretty big rock stars with pretty deadly bodyguards around them. I remember Chad Kroeger had the same situation, and Robert Plant, and Kid Rock. So the reason I bring that up is that when we got to Kelowna after soundcheck, one of the security guys, very intimidating guy, but a very nice guy, but not somebody you'd want to piss off. He came up to us and said, "Hey man, what's going on? Like Bob really likes you guys. He really wants to meet you guys. Why did you guys leave last night after the show?" So Bob Ritchie is Kid Rock's real name. Bob really wants to meet the band. He loves you guys. Like after the show tonight, stick around and come to his private dressing room, and he wants to hang out and talk music. And we were like, okay, cool. And actually, shortly after that meeting, Sean Dalton was in catering, and he ran into Kid Rock. And Kid Rock mentioned how much he liked the band. He really liked my voice. He thought I sounded like Lindsey Buckingham, and it was cool. Really nice compliment. Really, really, really nice guy. And once again, Kelowna show, amazing, off the charts, incredible band, incredible performer. And then we went into his dressing room in the bowels of the hockey arena where they have these makeshift, curtained off dressing room areas. It was like darkly lit, kind of red lighting, and Kid was in there drinking beer and playing music off of his laptop. And it was really cool. We sat in there until about 3 or 4 in the morning, just talking music and drinking, and it was really weird. At one point, he was like, "I really like your band. I videotaped your last 2 shows, and I have them on DVD." I'm like, "Oh, that's awkward and embarrassing, kind of." And anyway, he has he had a camera out front, and he was filming our shows, and then he gave us the copy of the Vancouver and the Kelowna show. And I wasn't sure if he was saying, "Here, you guys need to work on your stage show a bit. Watch yourselves on the DVD." And so we actually did watch them, and we actually did improve our game, because we're usually a big club or bar band, and working an arena stage is a whole different ball game, and it requires a different kind of pacing and the way you work the stage. And watching yourselves, it's like watching yourself on video is humbling at the best of times, but that's how you get better. So that was a really cool thing for him to do. And so far, this doesn't sound like a very rock and roll story, but I'll get there. So anyway, we made friends with Bob, despite his kind of redneck, kind of badass exterior. Was actually like one of the probably the nicest rock and roll star we'd ever toured with, and he was so inclusive. I mean, his band was black, gay, straight. There was all the colors of the rainbow in his band. So it's like there was a little bit of a disconnect with how people kind of perceive him and who he actually is. And he was actually he's actually was really great. I could have done without his endorsement of Donald Trump, but that's for another time. Anyway, we made friends with him, and we kept touring. We got out of the mountains and into the prairies, and we had a big show at the Calgary Saddle Dome. And that's a historic, awesome hockey rink to be playing in. And that's when shit got a little bit more interesting. A bunch of the guys from the Calgary Flames at the time showed up for that gig, and they were all hanging out backstage. And the after party, as one of the answers to the questions, the after party was a rager with Kid Rock hosting and DJing, and there was a bunch of hockey players and cheerleaders and Shrews guys and Kid Rock band guys and a bunch of stragglers, and it was going. And then at one point in the night, it split off into 2 camps. It was me and Janangas and Jack and our road manager Todd. Todd's like, "Okay, guys, we're playing Edmonton tomorrow night, so we should go back to the hotel and get rested." And we're like, "Yeah, sure." So we took off in the van. We couldn't find Sean. Sean ended up with Kid Rock and those guys, and they went to a secondary location to keep the party going at some crazy hotel party thing afterwards. And, went back to the hotel, slept, woke up in the morning, got to lobby, and Sean was nowhere to be found. We didn't know what to do. We're like, "Well, Sean's not here. Last we saw, he was going off into the night with Kid Rock. That couldn't have ended well. So we we ended up waiting in the lobby in downtown Calgary for a little bit, and then finally Todd got a call from Kid Rock's road manager, who said, "Hey man, we got your boy Sean. Him and Bob stayed up all night partying, and we're gonna take Sean on Bob's private jet to the next gig. So you guys just go ahead and drive in your van to fucking Edmonton, while your drummer, who stayed and had the best time of his life with a huge rock star, will take the private jet with him to the gig." So all good. So we're all sitting there going like, "Oh man, God, we suck. We're so stupid to think we need sleep and be responsible. What a lame thing to have done." And so Sean, but then it got a little bit more complicated. So it's like about a 3-hour drive from Calgary to Edmonton, and we got into halfway through the drive, and then we got another call from Kid Rock's road manager saying, "Oh, because Kid Rock's private plane is got an American manifesto, and only people with American visas and passports can ride on this private jet. We can't allow a guy who's not on the manifesto to ride." So they had to buy Sean, which was also a cool thing to do. They bought Sean a regular ticket on a WestJet flight. So Sean had to fly. I'm sure he was. I mean, I saw him when he got to the venue, so he must have been a mess then. So Sean had to fly on his own from Calgary to Edmonton, which isn't a long flight. But by the time we arrived at the Edmonton show at the Rexall, I think it was the Rexall place, the hockey rink in Edmonton, Sean was like, it looked like he did not stop partying. Like it was like the party. I mean, we were all partying a lot in those days, but Sean was at that next level, and he was just kind of walking around, and God love him, he was just keeping it together for the gig. There was like 10,000 people there, and we went on, and I was like, what the hell happened? No, before we went on, like, what the hell happened? And Sean's like, well, we all ended up back at a hotel, and there was a bunch of people around just partying like crazy, and me and Bob just sat listening to Bob Seger and Jim Croce all night. I'm like, that's the fucking weirdest thing. So there's this crazy rock and roll party, and you guys are in the center of the hotel room, like looking at each other's eyes, like operator, can you tell? It's like I was just trying to picture it. I couldn't get my head around it. But yeah, it turns out Kid Rock's a huge Bob Seger and Jim Croce fan, and they were just listening to music in the center of this insane party, and it lasted until the morning. And then, but they were, having fun. And the next day, Sean was pretty tweaked, but he pulled it together, played a great show. But towards the end of our show, it was getting like a bit wild. Like we were all wild. It's like, but it was just Sean's night to be wild, and we were really rocking and really going crazy. And at one point, Sean, at the end of Poor Broken Heart Me, which is our last song of the set, Sean's kick drum and kick pedal broke. So he just threw his drums in the air, just trashed his drums, grabbed the kick pedal, and Kid Rock's has like an ego ramp, those rock star ramps that go out into the middle of the arena. Sean we're trying to go, and I got to see Sean running past me down the ego ramp with a fucking kick drum pedal, and he just goes to somebody in the front row and gives them the kick drum pedal, and I could just see the person going like, I think I should think this is a good thing. You don't think like getting a drumstick or a guitar pick or something like that, but to get a kick drum pedal, it's so awkward and cumbersome and weird. Like, where are you going to stick that shit? While you enjoy the concert, you're like, kick drum pedal, but it's like, they're kind of heavy and weird. So some kid's like, okay, I guess I'll take this home. So yeah, some kid out in Edmonton has a broken Sean Dalton kick drum pedal from 2011. And then we got off the stage, and we were kind of thankful that we got through the set without totally falling apart, because it was a wild night the night before. But then I was wondering, we only had to play 45 minutes, and we barely pulled that off. I don't know how the hell Kid Rock's going to do this, because he had on the same sleep schedule as Sean Dalton, and he came out and he was even better than the last 3 nights. I mean, he came out in a big white fur coat and a cowboy hat and sunglasses, and he just destroyed the place. It was just incredible, and I was just like, man, some guys are just built different. I don't know how he did that, but that's probably why he's Kid Rock, and that's why he's a huge rock star. But it was unbelievable. Yeah, he might have napped on the plane, but you need a hell of a lot more than a nap after a night like that. But anyway, he was incredible, very professional, and it was cool. After that night, it died down a little bit, because it really went far in Calgary, and it really got kind of crazy. And so then I think we got through Saskatchewan and Manitoba without incident, and always cool and always cordial, and the shows were going great. And we were watching ourselves because Kid would give us our videos, so we were watching ourselves and kind of improving our shows. Boring, that's whatever. We had fun, and then like another big part of that, tour was that we got to play the ACC here in Toronto for the first time. And like after I've seen many a show, rock show, I've seen a lot of. I'm a Leafs fan, so I've been to the ACC a lot of times as a spectator, and it was like a real cool honor to be able to get up on stage and actually do a true show. That was our only time playing the ACC, and I thought it was a big highlight for us, and we were really stoked on that. However. That being said, we had about a 50-person guest list, as we always do when we play hometown shows, and Toronto's one of our hometowns, and everybody wanted to party, everybody was going crazy, and we're like, yeah, we should party, like it's our first time playing the ACC, and everybody wanted to come backstage, and Kid Rock and his manager and road manager were there, so cool. They would just like gave us the run of the place, and everybody was back in our dressing room drinking Ryder beer and whatever else, and it was getting pretty rambunctious. And at the end of Kid Rock's set, being the consummate rock and roll party man, like he's like, oh, you guys have a big party full of people, like come over to my dressing room, let's all party together. I'm like, ugh, I don't know, like a lot of these people have been drinking since like 6 o'clock in the evening, and it's now 10:30 at night, and like I know you just got off stage and you're all hyped and it's awesome, but some of these friends of ours might be liabilities at this point, and I don't want people to get kicked out and all this stuff, and we're trying to be cool about that, and it was cool. We went into Kid Rock's dressing room. This time around, it was me and him sitting in front of a laptop computer, and he was YouTubing his own performances, which was, it is what it is. And I was like, oh, cool, yeah, it was good, you're good, and then at one point, he was just playing me some songs he liked from other bands, and it was cool. We were just like actually just singing songs to each other while this party was raging around us, and then at one point I just remember he put on our song Hope and Ruin. He goes, this is a fucking hit. And then he put on our current single. Hope and Ruin was our first single from the Hope and Ruin album, and our second single was World I Know. And he goes, this song should be a hit, but the mix sounds like shit. I'm like, okay, why don't you tell me what you really feel? So anyway, we're having that kind of conversation. And then my brother-in-law, my now brother-in-law, and my sister's boyfriend at the time, a guy who who is a really good friend of mine, and he's a lovely guy. He was dating my sister at the time. He's a Frenchman from Sudbury, Ontario, named Denis Carrière, and I love him very much. But he's the kind of guy, when he drinks, much like myself, he gets very gregarious and outspoken and loving, and a little bit much, and as any respecting Scottish guy or Irish guy or Frenchman will do when he's drinking, and he was on it that night. He was feeling pretty good, and I kind of saw him making his way around the room, and as me and Kid Rock were talking music, I'm like, uh-oh, Denis. And Denis was just like walking around, he's kind of had his eyes half closed. I need ice. Ice. And I'm like, oh, sit down, or Annie, take him home. Or I was just thinking to myself, I don't want to get my future brother-in-law in trouble here. And finally he caught Bob's attention, because Bob was talking to me about music, and then he looks over and he sees the stumbling Frenchman kind of making the rounds, and then Kid Rock goes over to him, and I was like, oh fuck, and he confronts him and says, hey man, everything all right? And then Denis doesn't even acknowledge that it's Kid Rock. He just goes, I need ice, and he goes, all right, and he calls a security guy over, and I'm like, fuck. Goes to a security guy and says, go to the other room and get this guy some ice, okay? So that was that, and Kid Rock's a cool guy, and he got my brother-in-law some ice. He didn't get kicked out, and it ended up being really cool. And for a guy who's so synonymous with being this like right-wing kind of badass guy, he's one of the most cordial and kind people I've ever toured with. So kudos to Kid Rock. you know. And I'm noticing some questions here about the Highway of Heroes. I was going to get to that. This is a very Kid Rock centric Patreon stream. But at that exact Toronto show, one of Kid Rock's good friends, or Bob's good friends from Detroit, is a guy named Eddie Harsh, who was the genius level keyboard player for the Black Crowes for years. He's now since passed away, but one of the most talented men in the history of rock and roll is Eddie Harsh. And Eddie Harsh was at the show that night, and he struck up a conversation with John Angus, and we're all really big Black Crowes fans, so we ended up kind of making a connection with him. And through that connection, we ended up recording a version. Kid Rock was a huge fan of our song Highway of Heroes, so we ended up recording an American version of Highway of Heroes with me and Kid Rock singing together and Eddie Harsh playing the piano. And that ended up going down. Me and Eddie recorded it here in Toronto at Orange Studios, and then we sent the tapes to Kid Rock, and he put his vocals on in Detroit later, a couple days later, and we ended up putting out that version of that song, and that all came through the Kid Rock tour, because we met Eddie in Toronto and recorded that song with Kid Rock. So that was a really cool connection. I can stop now, and if you have any questions. Robert Rock. Exactly. Robert Rock. Hey, Colin, are you doing anything different to keep yourself busy during this second major lockdown? From Robbie. I am, yes. No, I don't know. I got this new computer, and I've been messing around with GarageBand and trying to, I'm still writing songs even though our record's done, and I've been collaborating with some new artists over Zoom, trying to work out and eat right and cut back on the drinking and stuff, and just keeping it together. We're in the end game. It's the hardest time. I always think about, this whole thing being like we're in the last leg of the long trip. I think I mentioned that last time, and it's the hardest part. So I'm just trying to hang in there as best we can. I still got more Kid Rock story, if you're into that kind of thing. But so a year after that, in 2013, 2 years after our show with Kid Rock, we ended up doing the Kid Rock cruise. It's called Chillin' the Most cruise. So we've done a few cruise ship gigs. We've done the Rock Boat, and we've done Kid Rock's Chillin' the Most. And when I was dating Serena, Serena did the Melissa Etheridge cruise. So I've actually been on cruise ship gigs 3 times as a performer and 1 time as a boyfriend. And they're really cool. Kid Rock's cruise was definitely like off the charts, kind of insane. It was, I felt like we were like maybe a little bit too nice little Canadian boys for it. It was very like, very Southern rock, real deal, kind of vibes. It was still in the, if ever there was a predictor of Trump's America, it probably would have been most of the guests on the Kid Rock cruise. They were very, there was a lot of American flag bandanas, army shorts, and black shirts with guns on them, with big white letters saying, "You just try to take it from me." And so I think if I was a better social scientist at the time, I would have said, this is a predictor of something. I don't know what it is yet. But these were still in the days of the poptimism and hopium of the Barack Obama administration. We're all in this together. It's all great. But on the Kid Rock cruise, something was afoot. Yeah, a lot of very... God love them, big rock fans, but, hardcore would be the way to describe it. And a lot of I think probably a lot of right-wing Republican types. And before Donald Trump, that was a totally fine thing to be. But after this crazy shit this last week, it's like scary as hell. And, but we ended up on the show, on the tour, and Chrissy, we did not fucking play Gun Control. I did not have the balls to do that night. But we had some good shows, and it was fine. It was a little bit weird. We went on, so when you're on these cruise ship gigs, you're floating around the ocean. We left out of Tampa Bay, and then they have these like makeshift theme islands in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. And they kind of change it depending on which cruise ship shows up. So Kid Rock's island was called Redneck's Paradise, and they put out a big sound stage there, and we went on there and played in the afternoon one of the days. So you basically play a bunch of different shows on the ship. You go to different stages, and then you do one outdoor show on a beach. And really good production. The crowd liked us. I think the crowd was confused by us because we're heavy and we rock, but we're not like, but maybe we're a little nice or something. I don't know, but we were playing and doing it and having fun and Kid Rock showed up for our show, and was already drunk, and it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We got off stage, and he was like stumbling with his like bottle of Jim Beam and his bodyguard to make sure no one was hassling him. And he's like, "Hey man, you guys are good, and you guys should come up to my captain's deck tonight, because we'll hang out." And we're like, okay, but like we're like, there's no way this guy's gonna still be awake tonight, and. So on those cruise ships, there's like the regular cabins for the not headlining performers and the people that are just on the cruise as guests. But on the top deck, you have to go through like a private elevator, and it's really swanky up there. I've only ever been up there once when Serena was doing the Melissa Etheridge cruise, and I went up there as a guest of Red, White, and Blue on the Rock Boat. But up there, it's like your own private swimming pool area, bar, restaurant area with a private chef, and the rooms are like mini condos. And then the headliner's room is like this huge open concept kind of master's den. I don't know, I just made up that word for it, but it's like there's like a bar in there, and there's a grand piano, and there's a hot tub, and there's this big dining area, and it's just very swanky and amazing. So yeah, so sure enough, we got back to the cruise ship. We went and saw, after we did our show on the beach, I remember we went to see the then up-and-coming trombone shorty, who was on the bill as well, and he was incredible. And we had a few drinks, and we're like, I wonder if he's going to still be awake and if we can still go party with Kid Rock tonight on this cruise ship. And sure enough, one of his handlers came and got us, and we went upstairs to the ship deck area, the really amazing area where Kid Rock was staying, and he was so drunk. And I'm like, oh my God, man, you got to go to sleep. And we went in there. It was me and Jeff and Sean and Jennings and Jack, and we were all hanging out, and we were like a little bit drunk, and Sean was totally sober at this time, so God love him. I don't know how he got through that, but we were all hanging out, and Kid Rock decided he wanted to pick on Jeff. So he's like, "You're a keyboard player?" And Jeff's like, "Yeah." He's like, and I know this is inappropriate, just take it with a grain of salt. "Keyboard players are gay." And Jeff's like, "I'm not gay." He's like, "Keyboard players are gay." And like Jeff's like, "What? Fuck you, man. Keyboards are awesome." He's like, "Yeah." And then so Jeff was going head to head with Kid Rock. This is the side of Bob that was a little bit darker. And not that we use those types of words anymore, but anyway, he was kept on calling Jeff that, and Jeff was kept on throwing it back in his face. And Jeff wasn't backing down. I'm like, whoa, Jeff is a fucking badass, but I'm worried that this guy could have us walk the fucking plank here in the middle of the ocean because this is his cruise ship. So I was kind of like kicking Jeff under the table, like, hey, just say yes you are and let's go. But Jeff wasn't having any of it. So Jeff went over to the grand piano and started playing, and killing it, because Jeff's amazing. And then Kid Rock starts freaking out over how amazing Jeff is. He's like, "Oh my God, you're the best, blah, blah, blah. You got to drum my band, you want a job?" And then Jeff's like, "Sure." So anyway, Jeff played and like totally took down Kid Rock's homophobic comments with some amazing piano playing. and then still really drunk, and there was a guy there in a hot tub. He kept calling his doctor, but I didn't want to go there. But there was some like weird looking, kind of sleazy looking dude in the hot tub the whole time. I didn't think he said a word, but it was weird. These are memories that are coming back to me. So we're all around the piano, and then Jeff starts playing "The Weight" by the band, which is a song we've all done. And we start playing it, and Kid Rock is so into it and didn't know a goddamn word, and we're just singing. And he was so, like, when you're drinking, right, your pitch just goes flatter and flatter and flatter. So he's like so out of tune, and we're trying to like, yeah. And then by the time he got to that point where it was like, and that "and" part, he kept insisting that it was "shine." And we're like, "Hand, shine." He would like, it was like, "Take a load off Annie, and take a load for free. Take a load off Annie, and he'd go in, "shine." And we're like, oh. So we had to put up with 6 verses of "shine." And then we said, you know what? And I think at that point, his girlfriend said, "Bobby, I think you better go to bed. And he said, yeah, all right. And that was that. And that was the end of the night. So, yeah, the rest of that cruise was crazy, and he was crazy. And that was the last time we hung out with Kid Rock in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on a cruise ship. And he was drunkenly getting all the words wrong and singing out of key on the weight. But other than that, the consummate performer, an excellent rock star. And I think behind that whole tough guy persona, he's a pretty nice fella. How do we meet Rich Robinson? Have I met Chris? Interesting stories about your time with Rich. Yes, we've known Rich Robinson for a long time, since 2004. We met him when he was touring with Gordy. He was doing a solo project, and Gordy Johnson was playing bass. And, oh, I had one last thing about Kid Rock, and I'm sorry to do this, but it was the funniest thing I've ever heard, and I need to share it. So ever since the Kid Rock tour, I've been until the last 4 years with Donald Trump, I was a Kid Rock defender, like people that would say, like, he's like this, kind of racist hick guy, but he's not. And he's and I was talking to Gordy Johnson one night about it, and this was years ago when me and Gordy were still talking, but I said to Gordy one night, I'm like, you know what? He's actually really, really great. Like, he's a really true, great rock star. Like, he really owns it. He's really cool. And then Gordy just said to me, after like a long pause, he said, I think of Kid Rock the way I think of Jesus Christ. I like the guy, but it's his followers that scare me. All right, so I like that. So, anyway, so that was hilarious. If you didn't think that was hilarious, I don't know. I don't get it. So anyway, so that's it for the Kid Rock thing. But to answer your question about the Trews and the Rich Robinson connection, so yeah, we met Rich Robinson in 2004, and he was touring with Gordy. We hit it off. I think that Rich is a really an artistic genius. I mean, we still collaborate with him to this day. In fact, we were doing Zoom sessions with him over the summer, and I just wrote some lyrics over some music he sent me and John Angus a couple days ago. So our connection with Rich is long-standing. Rich came up in 2012 to record on our EP and played guitar on our Thank You and I'm Sorry EP. He kind of sees us as his little brothers, a scrappy little band from Canada that loves the Black Crowes. And yeah, we've always been friends with Rich. Like with Chris, it's like you have to understand the dynamic between Chris and Rich. Like there's not a yeah, if you're Rich's friends, the chances that you're going to be Chris's friends are not that great, even though Chris is amazing and one of the greatest rock singers of all time, and I love him. But I remember this one particular show, we showed up as guests of Rich, and Chris was backstage entertaining after entertaining on stage for 3 hours. And so Chris is like, when you walk in backstage with Chris Robinson and with Chris Robinson, and he's a very big presence, very charismatic. So he's like just going on about this thing. Like, you wouldn't believe the thing I saw there. I was reading this magazine, and they're literally saying this, and I would never buy it. Like, it's like you don't know what he's saying, but you just feel the energy. And then he saw us come in, and that night Matt Mays was opening for him. So Matt Mays and his band were there, and the Black Crowes were all in there. And at one point, Chris sees us come in, and he goes, "Oh, great, the Trews are here. Oh, I call you guys Trooper. Hey, big Canadian rock party. Get Matt Mays in." Just starts fucking with us right away. We're like, "Oh, all right, go for it." So it was Chris just doing his thing, and love and respect him enough to. I don't mind getting made fun of by better guys than me, but he was giving us shit. And it was one of those funny little moments. So with Chris, we've met him on and off over the years. I remember when he was with Kate Hudson, like they had like Kate and all those guys, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, all had a place in cottage country in Ontario, and Chris would come into Toronto, and we'd see him kind of pull up and pick up Gordy, because Gordy and Chris were really good friends, and we see him from afar. And I remember, actually, we did meet Chris before Rich at a show at the Phoenix in Toronto. He was doing a solo thing in 2002. We went to his sound check, and once again, I remember Chris saying, and this is where I'm going to come out and do my big speech about 9/11, you know. And then he started ripping on Bruce Springsteen. He was like, you know what? I don't get it, man. Bruce Springsteen had that record out, The Rising, at the time. He's like, if the only thing you can write about is suffering and 9/11, man, like, fuck you. I'm like, he was just going on, and we were just like 23-year-old, 22, 20-year-old looking like, hey, all right. And then he came over and he goes, hey, man, I'm sorry about that. I don't even know what I was talking about. So that was my first Chris Robinson story. No, don't put down the bus. And by the way, these are all like pretty privileged Patreon type stories. I mean, you can tell your friends, but don't go tweeting them. Now that I say that, maybe one of you will. But anyway, yeah, we got to meet some cool people, you know, and it's kind of fun to look over some of these stories. So yeah, we're planning on our new record. Rich produced 3 songs. He was supposed to produce more, but we're going to keep collaborating with Rich going down the line, you know. Oh, Nikki already emailed Bob, eh? Bob Rock. First rule of Patreon, we don't talk about the stories Colin told us on Patreon. Second rule of Patreon, we don't talk about the stories Colin told us on Patreon. Third rule of Patreon, if this is your first Patreon, you got a Patreon. All right. Didn't we all sign the... Oh, yes, non-disclosure agreement. That's a good idea, Kristen. So Jennifer asked, how do the Trues decide an album title, and any thoughts for the latest in studio album creations? Also, how is the puzzle coming along? Puzzle's not going so great, but the album is done, and we're in the middle of trying to sequence it and name it, and both are difficult. We all have very different ideas of how the songs should be placed and in what order. I'm a big fan of the album still. Like I like records to tell a story, and I feel like this one does. And I have a certain idea of how I want it to go, and it's the exact idea of how John Angus wants it to go. So we're in the middle of cross-purposing, talking at cross purposes. You know, I'm a Gemini, and John Angus is a Scorpio, so they always say that Gemini and Scorpio are like two sides of the same coin. They'll never see eye to eye, but they'll be stuck together for life. Yeah, so we're trying to name it. Usually what happens when we name records is we leave it till the absolute last minute, and then we'll kind of go over notes, lyrics, just see if something cool happens. We always love the title Civilianaires, so that's, like, for example, Civilianaires, which ended up being the better title. I wanted to call that album No More Saying Goodbye. I thought that would have been a cool title, and but I think the guys felt it was too biblical and maybe too dark. So we ended up going with Civilianaires. So what we end up doing is we usually have a list of album titles, and then we'll kind of vote on them. Jeff Haysalt named the acoustic record Friends and Total Strangers. Yeah, biblical. No More Saying Goodbye is a quote from the Bible. There'll be no more saying goodbye. How do we come up with Love Lock? Okay, so that's actually a question here. Joanna asked, what inspired Love Lock? Love Lock was a song that I had the guts of me and John Angus and Jack had this song that was just basically a chord progression that Jack actually brought in, and it just was really cool. And at the time, I was watching an O.J. Simpson documentary on Crave, and the prison where he was staying was in a place called Lovelock, Nevada. And as dark as that story is, the name of the town stuck with me. I'm like, oh, that would be a really cool title for a song. Lovelock. Lovelock, 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 lock me away, love, lock me away. We're in Lovelock, Nevada tonight. And then I started to think about being in a touring band, but not being very famous or successful, but Saturday nights in a small town are always awesome, because, you know, towards the end of the night, especially in a small town, that's when everybody comes out and buys booze and drinks the night away. So came up with that opening lyric, hey there mama, don't you dig the sight of the latecomers on a Saturday night? We're in Lovelock, Nevada tonight. Tell those desert stars to shine. And we got Lovelock, throw away the key. From now on, it's you and me. And that's as far as I got. And then we had the chorus, we ain't lonely, we're hungry, love, lock me away. And then I was in Los Angeles, in Silver Lake at a Silver Lake. So I was hanging out there, and the Glorious Sons were in town making their what turned out to be their big breakthrough record. They were staying in this like uh, part of LA that was not very good because they were all living in this like really dilapidated house, like sleeping on the floor. And I wanted to hang out with Brett and Jay. I was interested in doing some writing because Serena was off doing stuff, and I was just bored. And I went down to wherever they were. I can't even remember the area of town, but it looked like it was pretty spicy, and not the kind of area you'd want to be hanging out after dark. But so the Glorious Sons were all pretty disheveled, like they were living on a shoestring budget and recording their record, and it ended up paying off dividends, by the way. But so Brett was very eager to come hang out with me in Silver Lake, and then Jay was also really eager. So Jay ended up coming later on. But the first day with me and Brett, we were sitting around like, you want to write a song? And Brett was like, yeah, like what do you got? And I showed him Lovelock. And he's like, "Oh, I really like that song." And I said, "Yeah, well, I'm trying to finish it. I don't know how to finish this song." And we sat around in the living room and just started telling the story about Johnny B and Sweet Marie. I think I had Tweedledum and Tweedledee, and Brett's like, "Oh no, man, that's lame." I'm like, "Yeah, you're probably right." And so we started writing this song about not a band anymore, but about like these two, this couple on a journey westbound on a bus, and they have nothing to their names except for love, and that's enough, and that's amazing. Like and the chorus is, "We're not lonely, but we're hungry. Love locked me away," and like the rest of the song is just about a young couple, and then by the end of the song, they've grown and they're looking at another young couple kind of coming out doing the exact same thing they just did. So I think the middle verse is. We don't got too much to our names, just enough to clear these plains. This wheel, this heart, the sand, each grain, they're all yours, one and the same. If we find out that love ain't free, we'll start ourselves a company. Your old man's got a bit of money. He'll do it for you, though he don't like me. And then the last verse is, look at them kids, they look just like us when we were fools on a westbound bus. I hope they know that there's no rush. I hope they stay love locked. So that's how that song came about. And it's going to be on the new record. The recording sounds really good, and I quite like it. Yeah, so that's the story with Lovelock. Eleanor Dalton. Any relation to Sean? Hi, Colin. Of all the places in the world that you've been and where you would like to go on vacation, if you had the time and the world was normal, I would like to go back to Cuba. I love Cuba. So that's where I would go when the world... I heard today they're going to roll out 20 million vaccines by the spring. So we could be out of this quicker than we think. Always darkest before the dawn. No, old Trump is impeached. Cuba is beautiful. I'm going to look at... I got some more questions that came from the Patreon page. Aaron, to go along with Jennifer's question about the album title, how do you guys decide the order of the songs? Right. So once again, we all have different ideas of how the song should go, and it ends up being kind of like a vote by the end of it. Like we all kind of try to find middle ground. So that's how we do that. Okay, and one more question here from Maria. Hey Colin, these crazy concert stories make me wonder if there was ever a show that the band walked off the stage because it was dangerous. There was one night in Thunder Bay where we were playing, and it was I think we learned the hard way. Don't ever just take a gig for the money. We were getting a bit big for our britches, and it was 2006 fall, and we got offered a buttload of money, to do the Molson Canadian Cold Shots tour. It was like we were supposed to be off the road. We had toured for 2 years, but it was like an offer we couldn't refuse, and we took the dough, and we went on this tour, and it was I hated that tour. It was us playing these corporate Molson Canadian Cold Shot shows to like universities with a bunch of kids that didn't give a shit. They were just there to get a free sample of the beer, and And I just remember feeling shitty every night about it and being like, this sucks, and like nobody really cares, and it's not fun, and but by the time we got to Thunder Bay, the crowds were really rowdy, not necessarily very respectful, and by the time we got to Thunder Bay, people were crushing up the cold cans and firing them at me like ninja stars. Like they really didn't like the band. I don't know what we were doing wrong all of a sudden. Like we were just a breakout band a couple of years before, but so somebody was throwing like these. So I was getting them in the chest, and they were cutting into my chest. So there was like little bloody, like there was a little bit of bleeding. And at one point, I'm like, I just walked off stage. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting hit in the head and getting hit in the chest with these crushed up cans because some asshole decided this is what he wasn't happy with. Because the thing about doing private shows for corporate things, they don't tell you what the band is going to be. So it's like these surprise gigs. And so what happens when you show up in certain towns, they're like, oh, Molson Canadian's secret show. And everybody's like, oh my God, I hope it's Beyonce. And like, no, dickhead, Beyonce's not going to play in North Bay tonight. But the Trews will. But like by the time you get on stage, people are expecting it to be like, you know, the Beatles or something. Like they just get, because it's secret, nobody knows, and then the rumor mills start flying, and it's just like a good old Canadian rock band, and you know, grateful for it. But then people get pissed off, and because they're not necessarily true, they're not Trews fans, they're just like Molson Canadian secret show fans. So it's just always a bit of a clusterfuck, and I never liked doing those. So anyway, I had to walk off stage during the Thunder Bay gig because I was getting pelted with crushed up cans. Would we do a private party for the right price? Well, maybe we I don't know. These days, probably. Anyway, so I got a few more minutes if you guys have any more questions. My friends and I got trampled at one. Oh, you got trampled? Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that you got trampled at our show. I remember one show where we had to stop the show in London, Ontario. That sounds like it rhymed, but not on purpose. It was a university gig, but this time it was Trews fans. It was packed, and there was a fight that broke out, and these guys were punching this guy's head in so bad that I stopped the show. And I was like, you gotta go. This is not cool. Like, that poor guy was getting so hurt. I hate that shit. I don't like fighting. Oh, what's my favorite movie soundtrack? Sorry, what was that question again? Can you just put it up one more time? What was my favorite music-themed soundtrack? How many times have I had to stop fighting at shows? A few times. There's been a few times where people get out of hand. Not anymore, now that we're older, and our fan base is kind of getting older with us. Like, there's less of that. But early on, when we were more like a university level type band, there'd always be some pretty epic fights and stuff. So it was, it was always disturbing because like watching somebody get his head punched in has never been, it's not my jam. My favorite movie soundtrack, I'm trying to think. Well, I really like songs that I ended up falling in love with through Quentin Tarantino's movies. Like, they're basically like, not only are they exceptional movies, but they're also incredible music videos, every Quentin Tarantino movie. And like even in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I started listening to so many of those great kind of hidden gem songs from the 60s that I wasn't for, and there was a couple that just killed me. And if I could get access to maybe I'll post some of my favorites, but there was I can't remember the names right now, but there was a couple of like kind of rare Mamas and the Papas tunes he had on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and a couple of other kind of one-hit wonders from that era that just had killer songs. So Tarantino always gets my my vote for favorite kind of soundtracks. And like Death Proof is not a very well reviewed Tarantino movie, but it's one of my favorites, and that's where I found the song "The Love You Saved" by Joe Tex, which we ended up covering on the acoustic record. So that's my thing. I'm trying to remember the song. Yeah, anyway, I'll think of it. I'll find you. One day will I show you my record collection. Yeah, I mean, there's not that many. Not right now. As of right now, I've got a Bee Gees record, I love the Bee Gees. Another Bee Gees record. It's just my latest. I got 3 Bee Gees records. Got a rare Led Zeppelin one in the light. This is like some rarity kind of compilation of live stuff. Nirvana Incesticide, which is a brilliant record, and it's got their greatest song, which is Aneurysm, in my opinion, and the best Rolling Stones record, Exile on Main Street. That's what I got on hand. Oh, and this one, one of my favorite live records, and one of my favorite bands is Kiss. I love them. Why do you like the Blues Run the Game so much? Because it's the best song ever. Blues Run the Game is one of the most beautiful. My 2 favorite songs of all time are probably a tie between Blues Run the Game and Kathy's Song by Simon and Garfunkel. I don't have Spotify, unfortunately. I use Apple Music still. But lately I just listen to mostly just heavy metal. Like, I go through phases with music where like I have to just listen to like thrash metal, especially if things are just getting too hectic. So like I'll just stick on like early Metallica or like a Megadeth Rust in Peace or like Slayer Rain and Blood and just get it all out, man. Like thrash metal is so good for the psyche, just to get all that crazy energy out by just banging your head and going mental. You know, that's why metalheads are the most gentle, awesome people, with the exception of like Norwegian death metal people, because I think they kill people. But other than those people, metalheads tend to be the most gentle dudes and dudettes because they're getting it all out through the music, man. That's what it's for. It's so good, you know. So right now it's just all about metal. So if you looked at my playlists on Apple, it would be Metallica Kill 'Em All, Metallica Injustice for All, Slayer Rain and Blood, and Megadeth Rust in Peace. So, yeah. And then sometimes it's so funny, like when I listen to a lot of death metal, like when I wrote Sing Your Heart Out, I was listening to death metal constantly, and then I exhausted myself and then wrote this really pretty song. You know, it's kind of funny the way my brain works sometimes. So, yeah. If I ever had to be in a tribute band, I'd want to be in either a Kiss tribute band or a Metallica tribute band, because Metallica tribute band playing James Hetfield's parts, that would be really challenging, and the Kiss tribute band would just be awesome. So hopefully it won't come to that, but you never know. Never say never. Yeah, it's like a duality. It must be a Gemini thing, you know, the twins. Like one part of me is listening to Rain and Blood, and the other part of me is writing Sing Your Heart Out. Brad, this is an interesting little tidbit of True's history. We used to cover Metallica quite a bit. We used to cover Four Horsemen and Creeping Death back in 1997 when we first started playing bars around Antigonish, when the majority of the band wasn't even old enough to be there. We would cover just the music to Four Horsemen because back then I found it too hard to sing. And then we covered Creeping Death from Ride the Lightning. And we'd get like people doing a mosh pit. It was really fun. Yeah. RATM. What's RATM? I would love to hear you cover a rod. Yeah, the Sabotage cover is really, really cool. I love Sabotage. That's good. Yeah, I want to be heavier. We have to make our like heaviest. Maybe after this next record, we're going to write the heaviest record, and it'll alienate some people, but you know, you'll know. After this conversation, you'll know where I'm coming from. Yeah, Rage Against the Machine are great too. I love it. The mosh pit would be not at Piper's Pub. It would have been at Chuggles. So yeah, and I like it. Like it's fun. Like when you scream, it's like it feels good. You know. Killing in the name of Rage Against the Machine. All right, team. Of course. Good. I'm a little slow, folks. The pandemic's wearing on me. Chris Jericho. I know Chris Jericho. That's what we wrote Jericho about. It was about Chris Jericho. I'm just kidding. How are you doing, really? Well, how are you doing, really? We're all just doing it, man. Day at a time. Stay on the sunny side of life. Yeah, my neighbors love my screaming. That's for sure. Heavy metal Christmas record. I love that idea. Now I'm just reading your comments. I literally have nothing left to say, but it's nice to just chat with you guys. Everybody just hang in there, and you know, it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. You know, so it's a good thing that we're all just hanging in there, and You know? Yeah, I love REM. Yeah, I'm hoping to do some more. I might do some more couch live streams. Not this week, but maybe next. We'll just see how I'll see how I'm feeling. And anyway, thank you for being here. And you know, I'll leave you with a quote from Levon Helm, and I'm stealing it because Levon Helm said this to John Angus. He said, "Good luck to you. Good luck to all of us. You guys take care, and I wish you nothing but the best. And I really appreciate you guys supporting us through this Patreon thing. It's really great for us, really helpful. We're gonna have some more stuff coming your way. There's a new record. You're gonna all get first dibs on that for sure. And we're already talking about hopefully planning some cool live stream stuff with the band, and hopefully we can get this goddamn flu under control and get out and do some shows, even if we have to start at drive-ins again. But I'll see you soon. I'll see you next month, and maybe before that on the couch playing some tunes if that's what you guys are into. Thank you for paying attention and hanging with me, and I will see you down the line. Stay safe, and I wish you happiness. Talk soon.